Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Premier ministre. Merci, cher Victor.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Thank you, Victor. Thank you for organizing the 5th EPC Summit. It is a format which is increasingly important. It is a geographical and political Europe where the governments of our people are represented, along with the major cooperation organizations that we have adhered to ourselves. This format does not compete with the EU nor with NATO, but it has its historical cohesion, its political geographical justification. The EPC is made up of different sensitivities but shared interests. I think that it's the right place to represent a greater Europe where history may have divided us in the past, it may have separated us, we may have taken different paths, but if we want to write the future together, the next century, then this is something that I believe in. This strategic geopolitical situation needs to be written, and the time is right for this. War is back on European territory in Ukraine. Tensions and conflicts are ongoing between some member states, Azerbaijan, Armenia, for example. We have societal phenomena that are of threats to our countries, terrorism, even over recent months, and we're all facing illegal migration matters which hinder our societies. And we have open economies that we have built on an open model. We continue to need this. We have climate challenges, environmental, geopolitical challenges to face. We have two blocs, the US on the one hand, China on the other, and first and foremost, they will defend their own interests. We cannot be complacent in the light of international rules. We have to ensure that they are respected. Yesterday, I spoke to the President-elect, Donald Trump, and some of us round this table are familiar with his previous presidency, but I think that our role here within Europe is not to comment on the election of Donald Trump, whether it's good or not good. He is American. He will defend American interests. It's legitimate. It's what he does. But we have to be prepared to defend the interests of Europeans. That is our question, and that must be our priority. Neither as part of a transatlantic relationship that will be naive. We needn't call into question our alliances or narrow our vision in the light of China's and American situation. This is a moment in history which is decisive for us Europeans, and this is the question we face. Do we want to read a history written by others, wars begun by Vladimir Putin, American elections, choices made by China affecting trade and ecology, or do we want to write our own history? We have strong economies. We have countries with sophisticated defense systems, but we represent something. The European Union is 440 million people, 27 countries. Then the European political community is more than 700 million people. If we have faith and trust in what we represent in trade terms, geopolitically, then there is no market of 700 million inhabitants that represents the order of magnitude of value that we represent around this table here. We cannot afford to disappear geopolitically. We can't be a market which follows other economic powers, economic and trade powers. So we have to decide to act, to defend our national and European interests, to believe in our strategic autonomy, our sovereignty, because we don't want to be tributaries. We don't want to be a market that is delegated to others. We don't want others to affect our technical geopolitical choices. We want peace on our territory, prosperity, our democratic model. This is what lies at the heart of the Europe that we've discussed together. As Vladimir said, peace is something that we have to fight for. There are different sensitivities around the table, but I'm deeply convinced that our interests are the same. It is a very important stake that Russia does not win this war. Once again, whatever people round this table think, if Russia wins, this means that we have an imperial power at our borders, and we will be signalling that they can be expansionist. And I cannot sit round this table in a tranquil manner and allow that to continue. We need to look at building peace between Armenia and Azerbaijan. We hope a treaty will be signed, and in substance, our peace and security at home in Europe. For Europeans, we have to say we don't want imperialism. We don't want any revisionism at our borders. This is a fundamental matter, and it is a message which represents our interests. We have to build a Europe of defence and make it a secure area. We've done a lot of work over recent years, and we still have so much more to do to finance, to build. And once again, we have to look at the funds. We also have NATO. We must play our part in this. This European pillar of Europe has to be part of the alliance. It is a strategic role that we in Europe have to take on board. We cannot delegate our security to the Americans. And it's important to send out a message that we are providers of security solutions now. Around this table, whether you're a member of the European Union or not, we have to produce. We have to ensure European preference in our industrial production. We have to look at interoperability across NATO members, but we may not always have the same agenda as our allies. So we have to ensure that we bring security to our neighbourhood, to the east, perhaps in the future to the south, who knows? We also have developed within the European political community a common structure. We had a European intervention initiative a few years ago. 12 or so member states took part in this. It's an intergovernmental organisation, and I would invite all colleagues here to join it, even if you're not members of the European Union. The EPC members can join this European intervention solution. It's something that allowed us to interact in the Sahel, for example, and we need to make progress there. I also think that if we can look at very specific, tangible solutions to combat clandestine migration, we have very tangible solutions, robust solutions in Europe. We've also worked with transit and origin countries to prevent migrants leaving and to promote returns, but we have to ensure that we are effective. We have to cover all the routes, all forms of migration. And when we have a problem with these small boats, it's not just a bilateral problem between France and the UK. It affects the whole of Europe. And the routes begin in the south, they come from the east, and we are all able to contribute to the solution. And then on growth and innovation, I'm quite convinced that we can do more for this. I'm sure we'll be able to come back to it at the informal summit of the EU leaders. We have a clear roadmap. Ursula has made a contribution here too, and a number of us round the table certainly adhere to this. Europe's going to simplify its rules, move faster, clean tech, AI. We have to reinforce our competitiveness through innovation, and I think we need to redevelop our internal market. We need to invest in our own market, not just turn it into a market which is open to everybody, but we have to look at European demand, which has collapsed over recent years. But this strategy is also relevant to the EPC, and within it we need to build to ensure that all the countries that are here, from Norway to the UK to the Western Balkan countries here, the Caucasus, we need to ensure that we have a true energy integration. If we can build a larger Europe for electricity, we can cover a lot of interconnection issues. And today, energy is something that's problematic for all Europeans, households, companies, energy prices. We have countries producing renewable energies at lower costs, and we have others that have gone for a nuclear model. But the problem is that in terms of integration, our electricity models are not interconnected. To have a Europe that is interconnected for electricity is necessary. This is something that we can believe in. We believe in the transition to decarbonising Europe, making it more competitive, and this is yet another subject for our EPC. We have to make Europe a stronger region for electricity, but we also have to clarify our agenda. We need to ensure that we have an economic security agenda. Global trade has been undermined by over-subsidization in third countries. Now, but we can't just behave like a supermarket that's open to everybody. We have 700 million inhabitants and consumers, which is why we have a shared interest. There is FDI from pretty much everywhere, but we need to ensure that we stand united and defend our interests. And then on democracy, as we've said over recent weeks, the European democratic model is also a subject. Georgia, Moldova, we've had a number of attacks, cyber attacks, vote buying, manipulation. All the observers have noted this. And I would like to congratulate Maya Sanders for the re-election. And I do hope that Georgia will affirm its European choice and its democratic model. But we have to be lucid here. Our liberal democracy model, an open model, is something that some powers may prey upon. The Balkan states know that they suffer disinformation, misinformation, cyber attacks on a daily basis. We have to protect our democracies, our democratic rules. That is a public strength for us. We need to ensure education, that our people know this, because if we fall prey to external propaganda that affects our democracy, we will see our liberal democracies wiped to one side. We have to defend our economies, our model for prosperity, our model for democracy. We have to build an ambitious, positive agenda. We have to raise awareness, become more aware of the greater geographical Europe. We will be a political power without equal. We must ensure that we are fully independent power. Geopolitics can't delegate that to America. We can't delegate our technological innovation to the Americans, our open market, just let China in. I don't think that's the right way forward. We have to take back control, not just within the heart of the European Union, but it's quite simple. The world is populated by herbivores and carnivores. If we just let the carnivores win, then we will be the herbivores. And to be honest, I think we should be omnivores. I don't want to be aggressive. I just want to be able to ensure that we can defend ourselves. I do not want to have Europe become a wonderful paradise for herbivores that can then be gobbled up by the carnivores. So I'd like to thank the Prime Minister for hosting us here, and I think that here, the day after US elections, we must be lucid, ambitious, determined, and this is something I'm totally in favour of. This is that we must show our common will, our common strength, and it is